They say the best things in life are free, and I'll try to prove it in this video, because tell me why as an engineer you're willing to spend $180 for something you can get for completely free just by using Cubase. Let me show you what I mean. Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Chenko. I'm a mixing and mastering engineer based in Lagos. There is this thing about us mixing engineers, and that is we always tend to chase the next shiny object in the market as regards plugins. Whenever there is a new plugin in the market, whenever a new plugin is marketed or advertised, we always like to go grab it as quickly as possible, even though the things that are being marketed in that plugin or about that plugin is something we can already do or we've already been doing using another plugin. And spending an extra amount of money, you know, tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars or even sometimes thousands of dollars on maybe an analog gear, only to achieve the same thing that you can achieve in the box, and sometimes by using your DAW's stock plugins. And in this video I'm talking about the Frequency 2 by Steinberg. This EQ is a beast of a plugin, and in fact in recent times it has almost made me stop using the popular Pro Q from FabFilter. I've been loving this plugin from Steinberg. I never knew I had it all this while, or I knew I had it but I never really, you know, dived deep into its features and everything that it had to offer. And so one day I decided, let me just give this plugin a go, you know, explore the plugin and see everything that it can do. And I was really blown away by how versatile this plugin is and how it gives me everything that the Pro Q3 gives me and even more. Let's dive into the DAW and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so here we are in Cubase, and for purposes of this video I have loaded up Frequency 2, which is Cubase stock EQ plugin, and also Pro Q3, which is what I have been using for the longest time. So I'm going to explore the features of the two of them, and you are going to see why I ditched Pro Q for Frequency. Now let's get into the first reason why I think Frequency 2 is such an amazing plugin. And it's that it gives you 8 bands of frequency points or frequency nodes or frequency pockets, whatever you decide to call them, as against Pro Q3, which gives you an unlimited number or as many as you can add number of frequency points in the EQ. Now, why I think this is a nice feature to have, I think it also poses a problem, and that problem is that most engineers, especially new engineers, tend to want to go into every frequency point and, you know, make adjustments because they feel every frequency point should be adjusted or there's a problem in every frequency point that needs to be addressed. Whereas when you are given a limited amount of nodes, it makes you think creatively, and this is one of the reasons why I like analog emulated plugins, especially EQs, because most of the time they give you 3 or maybe even 4 bands of frequency nodes to tweak, and then you have to use those limited amount of options to really think what do you want to achieve, and, you know, just go directly to what you want to achieve and just get the job done, as against this where you are presented with an endless opportunity and then you are tweaking your heart away, and you find yourself tweaking a signal for almost 1 hour because you want to get it to sound perfect, right? So this gives you 8 bands of frequency, which I believe is, you know, more than enough. The first band starts at 25, second band starts at 100, which I believe is the lows, then this is the subs, then here you have the low mids, which starts at 250 hertz, and then here we start to get into the mid regions, which is 500, and then 1k, and then 5k, which is now we're moving into the upper mids, and then 10k, and then 18k, which is the air region. So really these 8 points are more than enough for you to tackle any signal that you want to EQ, especially if that signal was properly recorded. You know, you will find out that there is only a little that you want to do to the signal, as against a signal where you need to create as many EQ points. That gives you an indication that that signal was poorly recorded and should probably be re-recorded. 8 bands of frequency, and these 8 bands, whatever one can do is what all of them can do, which is what I really like about this plugin. The second reason why I like Frequency 2 is that you have the ability to engage linear phase mode on every single band, and that is this button right here, which says LIN. So you can use this button. It says activate or deactivate linear phase processing. you can go in and activate linear phase on whichever band you really wish to affect. In Pro Q3, all you have to do is come here where it says 0 latency and just click linear phase, and the entire plugin is now in linear phase mode. But for Frequency 2, you can go into individual bands and then activate linear phase mode. And where I like to do this most often is in the low or the subs. Whenever I want to do a cut, I always make sure that linear phase mode is activated in this band, especially when I'm doing a cut and I'm going all the way high up to maybe 70, 80 or even 100, so that I don't alter the phase a lot or alter the phase so much. It tries to keep the phase in check or tries to keep the phase the way it is while making that cut. So the third reason why I like Frequency 2 is that it gives me the ability to do mid-side and also left-right processing on individual frequency bands, right? So if you remember earlier, I said I have the Pro Q3 and Frequency on both a mono channel and a stereo channel. Now the reason for that is because of this particular reason. If I pull up Frequency on a mono track or a mono channel, this is what you get. And same thing too with Pro Q3. Now you can see here the plugin is acting as a mono plugin, so I cannot really do mid-side. It says on every frequency band it says mono, and if I try to do anything here as well on Pro Q, I cannot make adjustments because it says here mono. So when we go into the stereo out, which is a stereo channel, you find what I'm talking about. So you can do it as well in Pro Q. Let me just take all this out. So let's say you have this band right here and you want to alter this band just in the mids. Let's say you want to cut out some of the mod or whatever in the mids or in the low mids. You can do this and then come here where it says stereo. So instead of it affecting the entire signal, you can just change this from stereo to mid, and then you are affecting this band only in the mids and it is untouched in the sides. So now let's say, for example, you also want to do the opposite on the sides, and while cutting the mids, you want to boost this point on the highs. You can just double click right on it and it creates another EQ node, and this you can change from mid. As you can see, it says here mid, and you can change it to side. So you can boost this exact same frequency point on the sides while cutting it in the mids. This is one trick I like to do a lot. And you can also do your low cuts. So let's say on your master bus, you want to make from 0 hertz to all the way up to about 80-90 hertz. You want to make it really mono. So all you have to do is do a low cut right here, and you can do that by, let me take this off, double clicking just around here, and it activates a cut. And then you come here, change it to side and bring it all the way up to, let's say, 90. And now everything that is on the sides from 0 to 90 has been cut off, which means every other thing that is here is going to sound really, really mono. Let's see that in action. So I'll just bypass this.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late. I'll never shake away the pain.
So now let's say I pull this all the way up here. This is going to make the entire, almost the entire song mono, and just leave the highs because I've taken out all the way up to 3K from the sides.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
Now you can see when I turn this this particular effect off, the sound became a lot wider, and that's because I've disabled it. So when I re-engage it, you find out that it goes back to being more mono than stereo.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
And this is one trick I really like to do, but this of course is too much. There's no reason why you would bring this all the way up here to 3K. So I like to put it around 80 or maybe 90. And this makes everything from 0 to this point, 80, 90, it makes it mono. And that is where you mostly have your kick, your 808, and sometimes your sub bass, right? So one thing you can do is also create another EQ point here. As you can see, this is also another cut, and you can change this from side to mid. So now this is you cutting off all the excess rumble in your signal. So you can make this mid, or you can also still make it stereo. So this doesn't affect what is going on here on the sides. You still have everything you have from 0 up to this point. It's just that this time you're cutting out all the low end rumble all the way up to, let's say, 30 or maybe even 35. So now everything from 0 to 35 has been completely cut off. But then on the sides, everything from 0 to 80, which is what we have here, is also cut off on the sides. So from 0 to 80 is mono, and then from what we have here, from 0 to 35, that low end energy, which you don't really hear or you don't really need, has also been tamed. Now this is how it works on the Pro Q3, and this was one of the reasons why I really liked to use the Pro Q, until I found out that frequency could also do the same thing. Now here we have a cut which I have done. Let me just turn all this off. I've done this cut right here, and for you to access the mid sides, it's just for you to go into here where it says stereo. So if you go to left, it brings you the left and right, and if you go all the way to the right, you can have the mid and the side. So you can see, if you change it to mid side, you can see here, this is the side and this is the mid on the EQ node 1. So it's labeled 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up to 8. So it's saying one side, one mid. If you bring it to stereo, it just says 1, because whatever you do here is going to affect the entire stereo channel. Now if you take it to the left, which is left and right, this is cutting out everything on the left while the right stays untouched. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be dealing just with the mid and the sides, which is a trick that I like to do a lot. So for this, I'm going to be affecting the sides. So we're going to repeat the same thing that we did in Pro Q. We're going to repeat the same thing here. All you have to do is just click on side and then take this all the way up to 80, or let's do 90 this time around, and do a cut. So now we've cut out everything on the side from 0 to 90, and in the mids, you go to the mids and you change it to, let's say, 25, and change the dB per octave to 48. So now you've removed all the rumble in the mid from 0. Everything below 25 Hz has been cut off in the mids, and everything from 0 to 90 Hz has been cut off on the sides. So that means from 0 to 90 is now mono, and also in the mids, what the mids is doing is removing the excess rumble on the sides. So we can do the same thing here as well. Let's do channel 5, for example, and I go to mid side, and on the mids I want to boost the presence around, let's say, 2K. We go to 2K on the mids and I boost it up a little bit, just to bring the entire signal forward. And I want to take that same frequency band back on the sides. So I go to the side and I also take it up to 2K and then drop it down. So this is going to make that particular frequency band a little bit more mono, and it's going to push as well it's going to push the mids, push it forward a bit and just relax the sides. So it brings out that part of the frequency range, brings it forward, makes it present, and also makes it a bit more mono. So seeing that I had this feature on frequency, I stuck with it and there was no going back from this point. And just for the sake of it, we can also do a little something on the highs. So let's say we want to boost the sides of the highs, make it more wide or make it wider, boost the sides, and then, remove the mono content or the mid content of the highs. All we have to do is come to this guy right here and change it to mid side mode, and then just do a little dip right here on the mid channel, and we'll change it from peak to high shelf. Let's bring this back a little bit so we see what we're doing. So now we've taken down this much 7 dB on the mid channel of the highs, right? And then we go to the sides, we come down as well to this point. Let me just try to match that. Come down to this point and change this to high shelf as well, and we boost instead of cut. So now you can see us doing, like opposite moves just to exaggerate, the effect that we are going for. So this is if I want to boost more of the side content, right, on the highs, and then remove a little bit of the mids. So for fun, you can do this, or if it's really a creative effect that you want to do, you can do this. But then for me, the moment I found out that frequency could do this, it really changed everything for me. And you don't necessarily have to do it exactly on the same point. So let's say for this one, on the sides, you want to, cut out, but you don't want to cut out at 2 kHz. You want to cut out maybe somewhere lower. So this is independent. It doesn't affect what's happening on the mid channel. So you can cut at whatever point you want to cut while the mid stays where it is. And the same thing too for every other one. Let's say the mid's here, you want to move it a little bit backwards. So you can do really whatever. It's independent of each other and it gives you absolute flexibility. The next reason why I love frequency, which is an absolute game changer for me, this particular feature, is that it doesn't just act as a static EQ, it can also function as a dynamic EQ with extra controls, and that is the ability to set your ratio and also your attack and release. So this plugin can function as an EQ, as a dynamic EQ, and also as a compressor, all in one EQ. Now let me show you how that works. So let's say we want to work in this frequency band and you've done a boost right here, or let's do a cut. You want to do a cut right here, but you don't want this cut to be static. All you have to do is just, activate this dynamic section. And when you do that, you can see this line over here. So this green line going all the way shows that it's a static cut and it's going to be like this all through. But when you activate this dynamics right here, that means this is going to dock only when this particular, whenever the frequency within this particular frequency band crosses a certain threshold that you are going to set. And how do you get to that is by clicking this right here. So it changes it to show the dynamic parameters. So here you get your threshold, you get your ratio, you get your attack, and you get your release settings, which are the features of a compressor, but you have it in an EQ, especially when you are using the dynamic section of the EQ. So let's say we have a signal going right here.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
So let's say you want to pull this down, just a couple dB, and then you only want it to pull down when it gets to the loudest point. So you use this threshold slider and just pull it back down all the way till you get to where you want.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
And you can decide how hard or how softly you want to, do this attenuation. So the ratio, you can go all the way from 1.5 or even 1.2, as low as that, all the way up to 8, which is, becoming really hard, compression or hard reduction.
I never needed anybody in my life.
Right, and you can set the attack and the release as well. So now we have it at the fastest attack.
I never needed anybody in my life.
Now all the way to the slowest attack.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
We can as well do the same thing for the release. Let's say we want to hold it a little bit longer and attack it as fast as possible, but then hold it a little bit longer so that that part doesn't jump out uncontrollably.
I never needed anybody in my life. I learned the truth too late.
So this is an amazing feature that the Frequency 2 has, which I feel is what gives it the edge that it has over other EQ plugins, especially as a stock EQ. And I think this, because of this feature, this plugin really should not be free, but then it's free, especially if you are using Cubase. And I really, really like this feature. Oh, and side note is you can get deeper into each of these bands, so you can show a bit more details than what you see here by going to this view tab right here, and if you see here, you can say it says you can toggle between single band and multi-band view. So right now this is the multi-band view, and if you select any band, let's say we have this band selected, you can click here and it shows you the single view of this band. You can see we are here now in band 2, and you can go to band 3, band 4. These ones are grayed out because they are not active, there's nothing happening. But then on this one, you can see this is where we have our dynamic section. And another way you can get to it besides clicking here is double clicking on the band itself, just at this top row here. Double click on it, and then you can access the single view mode. So here you have your EQ band 2. You can as well do your linear phase setting here, and then you can choose which frequency you want to affect here, choose the Q, how tight or how wide you want it, and then how much do you want to boost or gain. And this invert right here, so let's say you've isolated this and then you've boosted it. Let's say you have a tight Q like this, and you've boosted and you found a spot that you feel is problematic, and you just want to hear what that part is going to sound like without this this annoying frequency. What you can do is just click this invert gain right here, and it's going to it's going to swap that boost that you did, and it's going to cut it by exactly the amount of dB that you've boosted it. So what I feel this is useful for is, so let's say you found a problematic frequency and you are not sure if cutting that frequency is going to help or not. You can just invert it and hear what it sounds like without that particular problematic frequency. So if you hear what it sounds like, you feel okay, it helps the sound, you can back it off, or just do whatever. It's just there if you ever find the need to use it. And as well, you can change from whichever mode you want, from stereo to mid-side or to left, right. And you can turn the dynamic section on. Same thing as we discussed before. You have your threshold here, you have your ratio, you have your attack and release to control it like you're controlling a compressor. And you also have your sidechain here. You can control what the sidechain input is going to be listening to. This is internal, or you can set each frequency to listen to a completely different sidechain input. It's really a very versatile plugin, and I love it for this reason. So another feature which this EQ has, which I believe almost every digital EQ now has, is the ability to turn off this spectrogram. So in case you want to train your ears and not be fooled by what you see, you want to turn it off so that you really listen and know what you are boosting or cutting out without looking at the graph, you can come here to this settings button right here, and you can turn off show spectrogram, or show spectrum, pardon me.
I never needed anybody in my life.
And now you are really forced to listen before you make any boosts or any cuts. Some people would like to have the plugin show the spectrum, and that's very okay, but then it's also wise that you listen and not just follow what the graph is showing you. And now, last but not the least, one extra feature that this plugin has, which honestly I don't know who this will be useful for or how useful this is, but just in case you really don't like to work with knobs and you like to work with sliders instead, one thing you can do is, when trying to turn or adjust a parameter or turn a knob, you can hold Alt and move the knob, and it turns into a slider. Now let me show you what that looks like. So now I'm hitting Alt and then I'm pushing up the slider, so it gives you the ability to turn this into a slider and move it how you want, and it works for any knob at all. So if you are a type of engineer who likes or prefers to work with sliders as against working with knobs, that feature is there if you ever find it useful. So yeah, those are the features that I really like about the Frequency 2, and I hope that with this video I've been able to convince you and not confuse you on why you should jump on the Cubase bandwagon and use its really nice, really detailed, very versatile stock EQ plugin, which is the Frequency 2. I love this plugin. Cubase is my DAW of choice, especially for mixing, and I really enjoy using this plugin. And so I hope that you find use for it, especially if you're a Cubase user, and if you are not, this is an extra reason why you should jump on the Cubase bandwagon. If you like this video, kindly leave a like and also drop me a comment on if there is any feature that I missed out. Leave me a comment, and as well subscribe to the channel. It's really going to be deeply appreciated. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.